Hi, welcome to RIoT Startup Spotlight, where innovation meets inspiration. I'm Jen Morgan.
And I'm Stella Turner.
And in this series, we dive into the dynamic world of entrepreneurship, shining a light on the visionaries and disruptors who are shaping the future. Today, we bring you an exclusive interview with Catie McVey, founder and CEO of OsRostrum, Inc. Hi, Catie. To begin, can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Yeah, so I should probably pre-apologize for the name. It's Latin for nose bone. I want our motto to be the nose knows.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So
how do you actually pronounce it?
OsRostrum.
OsRostrum. Good to know.
It's also a bit of a biological pun because actually only a pig has a nose bone.
But aren't you a dairy industry business?
It sounded cool.
So, I think it's great.
The rostrum is also part of like the brain that does some of the 3D synthesis from your eyes. So
interesting. Okay.
I didn't spend excessive amounts of time on picking a name.
Totally understand. Well, tell us a little bit more about what you're working on and what you're doing.
Yeah, so we're a livestock phenomics company. So we're specifically focused in the area of how can we create new data, new phenotypes to breed for more resilient animals. And we're specifically looking at my background in academics. I did actually do pigs all through undergrad, but my PhD and my master's was all in dairy science. Although we are currently hitting on a project that actually is probably equally useful for beef cattle and dairy cattle. We're actually starting with the lowest hanging fruit on the cow, which is their feet. So from literally the ground up.
Yeah, very cool. And could you tell us a little bit more about kind of going deeper into the previous experiences that you've had that influenced your role today? Yeah, so just tell us how you got here. What's your background?
Yeah, so I've actually been playing this space for like something like 15 years now. I started doing this research in high school. I grew up in a really rural area. I'm actually the 6th generation now. We just moved back onto our family's old homestead. So I grew up in a rural area, super into horses and livestock and stuff like that. But I ended up at North Carolina School of Science and Math, and I still don't quite know how, but I ended up in their inaugural class of research and computational science. I'm pretty sure they picked me just off of pure stubbornness, pure redneck stubbornness, but that was the argument I was given. But yeah, I got super into this idea of like all of these, like looking at the physical traits of like cattle and horses, you know, like straight leg, strong back, well hung udder, like things that, you know, your 4-H teacher and your grandparents teach you to look at. Like I was like, oh, well, it seems like you could just teach a computer to do this and even do it maybe a little bit better, a little more objectively, be able to, you know, add some of the cool data science wasn't like the in thing quite all that far back, but, you know, starting to do that stuff. So yeah, and I've just been extremely lucky. I've had the opportunity. I had a great mentor out of Duke to kind of teach me the ropes and teach me how to code. And then all through undergrad and then getting fellowships in my master's and my PhD, being able to go all the way through, just going deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole and continuing to study it more and more complicated levels.
That's interesting. So what made you decide to start your own company?
Yeah. I mean, so entrepreneurship is something I've always explored on and off. You know, I was in the early days of NC State's startup programs with Dr. Miller. And then, you know, play with the idea on and off in master's and PhD. Mostly I was kind of waiting for the technology, all the pieces of technology that had to come together to make phenomics truly useful. I just had to kind of wait till all of them got to the place where they were truly ground deployable, right? Not just academic. But I would say the big turning point was really, honestly, like a lot of people, COVID. Lots of time for reflection and, you know, talking with farmers and seeing lots of like issues come to a head, and like with climate change stuff and all economic stuff, and we're in the middle of a huge generation change in ag. Just realizing that, you know, I love land grant universities. I think they're like that framework's amazing, but, you know, they're really designed to deal with issues that are 10 years down the road, right? Things that are too far away for most people to put money into them, but there were so many problems staring us right in the face. I really want to be more on the front lines of it and working directly with farmers and giving them solutions. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So from that inception and when you were first inspired to now, what have been in your journey just kind of some of the biggest challenges you've encountered just being in the startup space, and how'd you overcome them?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it was funny when I've told people that, yeah, I'm going to leave this academic fast track and go do the startup thing. And I'm going to leave California, which is where I did grad school at. I'm going to leave California to do a startup in North Carolina. Everyone was like, what are you talking about? But like, I've actually found, like, I can't imagine doing a startup anywhere other than North Carolina. I mean, RTP is a great up and coming hub for ag tech in particular. Like, there's so many government NGO based like programs that I think it's an incredible place to be both a first time founder and a female founder. And then obviously ag tech founder. So like, the community here is great. But really just trying to come in, switching gears from, academia and like doing the deep dives and like, sometimes there's definitely a lot of room in academia to be perfectionists to our new model of if it works, right? So switching gears that way to be, more embracing the engineering side of my personality. And then in particular, being a first time founder, being an early career individual, just learning to trust my gut enough to just, there's a really great math advice that I got early on, which is that the sum of all advice vectors is 0. So you really got to pick, learn to just go with your gut, and in particular, be comfortable with, failing. Like, if you're not comfortable failing a lot, like, I guess when I came into the startup world, I expected, you kind of get this like thing of like, oh, they have big egos and big personalities, blah, blah, blah. And I found it to be the most humbling experience of my life, really. So yeah, that would be my advice, is get comfortable with failing and also get comfortable with just going with taking advice wherever you can get it. But at the end of the day, you've just got to pull the trigger.
I think that fear of failure definitely is something that all of us need to have a little bit more in life around. I'm wondering, you mentioned a little bit about some previous mentors, but do you have anybody that's really helped you understand that failure is okay, or any other like mentors or role models that have inspired you along the way?
Yeah, well, I would say my original mentor that got me into data science world, Dr. Egger. He's been helping me a lot with, just wrapping my mind about a lot of engineering problems and kind of getting into the startup world. I was super fortunate. I managed to get an Activate Fellowship, which is an NSF-backed program for deep tech founders that are coming. Most of us are pretty much straight out of academia. That's been an amazing support system. I'm the only Cal person that they've ever let in, and I think I might be the last. I don't know. I don't always behave. But that's been an amazing cohort with lots of mentorship and lots of networking, and then, a big crux of first-time founders. So that's been great. RIoT's definitely been extending my network quite rapidly on more of the software side. And then I also hang out at First Flight a ton, embracing the biotech side of my startup. So yeah. And I would also say, maybe this sounds weird, but we joke about like, what do the cow gods want all the time? I would say that cows are really great. If you ever want to learn how to just fail all the time and just go with it, you should get livestock.
Yeah, it's a great story. And yeah, just kind of on this journey, is there any kind of advice that you would give to others? You mentioned a little bit about just being comfortable with failure, but is there any advice specific to maybe future startup founders in the ag tech space, or just based on what you've learned throughout your time?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say on the ag tech, and I think this applies to everybody, but particularly on the ag tech side, I mean, I think there can be a little bit, most people in ag don't have this bias, but I feel like there's definitely a bit of a bias towards like, oh, farmers, we're prophesizing this fancy tech to them, right? That it's totally like, even with all my overeducation, like, I am not the smartest person when I go talk to farmers. It's been really, really listening to them and listening to their experiences and taking the feedback, and in particular being like, well, do you think this will work? No, practically you're going to get kicked in the face, like that type of stuff. And, you know, really forming those relationships where they will give you the raw feedback. That's been super important and also super fun. Like I love, the best part of my week is not the coding part as much as I love coding. It's always going out and, you know, messing around with like Hugh's cows or Randy's cows or like listening to their crazy stories. Yeah, so embrace the customer discovery, and it definitely, if you can get good pilot testers, beta testers, like spend as much time with them as they'll let you have.
That's really good advice. I think that overall your journey has been a really interesting one, and we're really excited to see how you continue to grow and evolve. That's all the questions that we have. Thank you so very much for sharing your story with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.